Do you ever wonder why you say yes to things you don't really care about, or why you trust a stranger in a suit more than your own intuition? Me neither, but Robert Cialdini did. He has spent 40 years trying to figure out what makes people buy or comply. He discovered that while there are thousands of ways to get someone to say yes, nearly all of them rely on the same 7 psychological principles. So in this video, I'll take you behind the curtain to show how easily we can all be influenced. The first principle is reciprocity. There's this study where participants were asked to complete a tedious 1-hour survey. One group was told, "We will give you $50 after you finish the survey." The other group got a different deal. They received a $5 check up front, and they were told, "This is just a gift. You can keep it whether you do the survey or not." The results were surprising. Only 23% of the first group filled out the survey. Meanwhile, 52% of the other group completed it. So when someone does something nice for us, even if it's small, even if it's something we didn't ask for, we instantly feel like we have to return the favor. Now, if you want reciprocity to have a big impact, then it needs to have 3 qualities. First, it needs to be meaningful. The gift or gesture has to matter to them, but it doesn't have to be expensive or flashy. For example, let's say you're staying at a hotel and you receive a handwritten note and a favorite snack after you have casually mentioned liking it. Would that drive you to leave a bigger tip or return to the hotel? Probably yes, right? So the first quality is that it needs to be meaningful. The second quality is that it needs to be unexpected. Because when the gift is unpredictable, people are more likely to perceive it as a generous gesture. The final quality is that it needs to be personalized. You need to tailor the gift to the person. For example, a teacher can inspire a student far more effectively by noticing something specific rather than offering a generic compliment. She could say, "I saw how you helped your friend today. Good job." Alright, let's talk about the social proof. Basically, the reason you've tried a restaurant just because there was a line outside or because it was popular on TikTok. Now, there are 5 forms of social proof. Expert proof. We trust people who appear knowledgeable. They don't have to be an actual expert. Celebrity proof. If a famous person uses it, then it must be good. No question about it. User proof. These are the regular people reviewing a product. We trust them because they seem unbiased, even though half of them are probably from a click farm in Bangladesh. Wisdom of the crowd. When large numbers of people endorse or adopt something, we assume it must have a value. Wisdom of your friends. We trust recommendations from people we know. If your friend tells you, "Dude, you have to watch this movie," you will watch it. You might even lie and say you liked it. The liking principle. We say yes more often to people we like. If you are charming and relatable, then they will be more receptive to your suggestions. Now, according to Cialdini, there are 4 simple ways to become more likable. Similarity. When someone shares your hobbies, background, or even something random like a birthday, you instantly feel connected to them. Salespeople know this. That's why they will casually mention they went to your school or support the same team or political party. Next, we have complimenting. It works even when they think you have an ulterior motive. Cooperation. We like people who seem to be on our side. That's why salespeople and marketers use inclusive language. For example, let's find something that fits what you're looking for. We'll make sure you get what you need. Let's build this together. The halo effect. We perceive attractive people as more intelligent, confident, and trustworthy. This bias also influences how we perceive products. When a product looks good, we automatically assume it is good. That's why corporations spend millions of dollars on packaging and design. Authority. We tend to trust people who have or seem to have more knowledge and power than we do. In a chilling study, a fake doctor called the nurses in a hospital and ordered them to give an unapproved dose of medication to a patient. The nurses fully understood the dangers of the treatment and were aware of the hospital rules that forbid these practices. Yet 90% of them followed the orders. Another interesting study shows a luxury car stalling at a green light. People behind it waited an uncomfortable 15 seconds before tapping the horn with hesitation. But what do you think happened when an old run-down car was stalling? Well, they honked almost immediately, and some even rammed the bumper. So if you want to influence people, you need to present yourself as an authority figure. The simplest way to do this is by dressing well and maintaining a confident body language. And of course, to have actual status. But what if you have no status? In this case, you need to pay more attention so you are perceived as an authority figure, and you need to work on your social skills. You really need to build a charismatic personality. Scarcity. When something becomes limited, it feels more valuable. We have all seen that when certain books or movies are banned, they often become more popular. This phenomenon is commonly known as the forbidden fruit effect. Now, scarcity becomes twice as powerful when you add exclusivity. When people believe only a select few have access to the information. In one experiment, a beef importer sent 3 different sales messages to potential buyers. The first message simply described the qualities of the product. The second message added that supplies were running low. You know, the classic use of scarcity. The third message was an exclusive tip that supplies were running low, but this information wasn't yet public. You know, they had the opportunity to act on insider knowledge. Guess which group bought the most? Exactly, the first group. I'm just kidding, it's the third group. They bought 6 times more beef than the others. So it's about the scarcity of the product and the fact that very few people know about this opportunity. Unity. We are social creatures. We look for tribes, teams, fandoms, friend groups, anything that makes us feel like we are part of something bigger. Once we identify with a group, we stop seeing people as strangers and start seeing them as one of us. And that feeling is powerful. It will affect how generous we are and how we make decisions. Now, there are 3 main ways to create that feeling of unity. Kinship cues. We are naturally protective and loyal toward people who feel like family. That's why so many companies or influencers call people a team, family, tribe, crew. Local identity. We tend to favor people who come from the same city or neighborhood. You know, there is a disturbing example from World War II. A Nazi camp guard spared a prisoner's life after realizing they were from the same hometown. He didn't stop being a monster though, he just didn't kill that man. The next one in line wasn't so lucky. Synchrony. When we do things in sync, like walking together, clapping to the same beat, or saying the exact words at the same time, we start to feel connected. Commitment and consistency. When people make a small commitment, they are more likely to say yes to a larger request later on. In a famous study in California, researchers asked homeowners to display a small drive safely card on their window. Almost everyone agreed because it's a reasonable request. However, 2 weeks later, the same researchers came back with a bigger ask. Literally, they asked those people to put a giant, ugly, drive safely billboard on their lawns. You would expect most people to say no, right? Yet, 76% of those who had initially agreed to the small sign said yes to the billboard. The reason is that small initial act reshaped how they saw themselves as people who support safe driving. And once that self-image was in place, their future choices aligned with it. Thank you for watching. If you want to learn more about persuasion, check out these videos.